Welcome back. All right, so we're going to preview the Eastern Conference Final between Tampa Bay and the Rangers, and I'm taking Tampa. So really, this series, I think, is going to be very close. And the other time these teams met in the playoffs, it was very close. It did go to the full 7 games, and it was a great series. That 2015 playoffs was interesting because the final 4 teams in 2015, I wasn't really all that interested in, but those playoffs were fantastic. And then we had a great Stanley Cup final between Tampa Bay and Chicago. And I just remember being so thoroughly entertained by those playoffs. Now, this incarnation of both Tampa Bay and the New York Rangers don't play that same style of hockey. They're both teams that want to limit the opposition's chances. It feels like sometimes they do that almost to the detriment of their own offense, but both of them have found a way to get here. They're in the conference final. They're part of the Final Four. And so we might see some low-scoring hockey games. This might be one of those, under makes more sense than going over on your line. So, we'll see how things go. That being said, of course, it's wildly unpredictable. And the channel, the vote is currently 74% are saying the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win the series. And that makes sense. But I do think this is going to be close. The Rangers have home ice advantage, which could be huge for them, right? So Game 7s, they've already shown they can win Game 7s. They've won 2 of them. Are we going to see a third Game 7 in a New York Rangers series? We could. Now, that being said, the Tampa Bay Lightning started to roll at the end of the series against Toronto. And then, of course, they roll through the Florida Panthers as well. And by them starting to roll, it's really the Vasilevsky show, isn't it? And so that's where the fascination comes in. But I'm going to talk about how we get here first. So for the Tampa Bay Lightning, against Toronto, it was 1 loss, 1 win, 1 loss, 1 win, until they got those 2 wins at the end of the series. So they lost 5-0, win 5-3, lose 5-2, win 7-3, lose 4-3, win 4-3 in overtime, and then win Game 7 2-1. And then against Florida, get your brooms out. They win 4-1, 2-1, 5-1, 2-0. Bam. So in the series against Toronto, they were actually outscored 24-23, but they won it in 7. In the series against Florida, they went 13-3 and they swept it. So quite a different experience between rounds 1 and round 2 for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Then on the Rangers side of the board, they lost the first game of their series against Pittsburgh in triple overtime 4-3, and that feels like it was a lifetime ago. Then they win Game 2 5-2. Then they go to Pittsburgh. They lose both 7-4 and 7-2. Then they go home. They win 5-2. They win on the road 5-3, and then they win 4-3 in overtime in Game 7. So at home, they honestly have had a very good record these playoffs. Outside of losing that first game against Pittsburgh, nary a loss to be found. And then against the Carolina Hurricanes, a series that is very similar to what Tampa Bay did with Toronto, where they were down and all the home teams are winning, or at the very least the games are going in a predictable manner. And then it changes at the end of the series. So they lost both games in Carolina, 2-1 in overtime and then 2-0, respectively. They only got 1 goal the first 2 games. Then at home, they went 3-1 and 4-1. Go on the road, they lost 3-1. Then they go home, they win 5-2. And again, to change the pattern, they won on the road to win 6-2 and move on to this series. In winning their 7-game series against Pittsburgh, both teams had 28 goals. In winning their 7-game series against Carolina, they actually outscored the Canes 20-13. So the goals against dropped by more than half. As Shesterkin gets his game together, there is definitely a similarity between Vasilevsky and Shesterkin and the way that they're playing, and the fact that they seem to be amping up their level of play as the series go along and the games get more important. Here's the word I was looking for. I knew I'd find it somewhere up here. So Vasilevsky 8-3 in the playoffs. 932 save percentage. Considering he was 897 in the first round, that 932 is ridiculous. Then Shesterkin 8-5, 928 save percentage. He was below 900 at one point in the playoffs as well. And Georgiev 0-1 in relief, 935 save percentage for him. So neither team has had to go to their backup goaltending very much at all. And the only reason Georgiev was in relief in a game that Shesterkin it wasn't there for him. So yeah, the goaltending, I give the edge to Tampa Bay, but it's close. Shesterkin's the best goaltender this year. Vasilevsky's the best goaltender overall. I think that's the thinking this year. And now Shesterkin gets to go in against Vasilevsky and say, oh, okay, best goalie in the world, huh? And try to knock him out of the playoffs. So this could be a very low-scoring series. Defensively, on the Tampa Bay side, and again, I picked 4 defensemen here. I'm not meaning to insult any that aren't on the board. But McDonough, a goal and 3 assists so far in the playoffs. He played for the Rangers, so that could be key for them, right? Victor Hedman, 2 goals and 8 assists for him. And Hedman, honestly, has been fantastic. Very, very steady. Had a couple of rough games against Toronto, but he's got it together since then. Sergachev, 4 assists for him so far in the playoffs. He's overdue for a goal. Chernak, 1 goal. Not about the points with Chernak. It's about the physicality and the defense. He's very good at both. And on the New York side, there's Jacob Trouba, a goal and 3 assists. Guarantee he's going to throw a hit. The thing with Trouba is, and we see this coming out of last night's game, his hits are clean. Should they be clean? That's a whole other argument for another time. But his hits are clean. He knows what he's allowed to do and what he can get away with. And somewhere, Scott Stevens is nodding approvingly because it's very similar. 20 years ago, Stevens is throwing hits and we're like, that's legal, sure, but should it be? So, and again, that's a whole argument for another time. But Trouba's very physical, very good, and you have to keep your head up when he's around. Adam Fox, 5 goals, 13 assists. He's had a remarkable playoffs, and 10 of those points being in elimination games, setting a new NHL record. That's fantastic. Lindgren, a goal and 3 assists for him. He is a cyborg. I'm going to be interested to see if Lindgren collides with Stamkos, who comes back first, and then who proves that they really and truly are completely indestructible. So this is a matchup between 2 teams that have been really sacrificing their body a lot. They have been making a lot of sacrifices in order to secure victories. Keandre Miller, a goal and 4 assists. He makes that sacrifice too, and he's one of the more underrated defensemen, I think, in the National Hockey League. Then, forward-wise, on the Tampa Bay side, this is Corey Perry's year, right? So, Corey Perry, 5 goals and an assist. He is trying to go back to the Stanley Cup Final for the 3rd year in a row and win his first. Meanwhile, Pat Maroon has 3 cup rings. He's going for his 4th. I don't have him on the board here, but we all know the one-man dynasty. And if he wins 4 straight Stanley Cup rings... Anyways, Palat, 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points for him. It feels like he's due for something big. Cirelli, only a goal and an assist. Now, I know he's playing a defensive role, but I expect some goals from him. We'll see if that gets any easier for him against Shesterkin, of course. Colton, 5 goals, 3 assists for Colton. He's had a remarkable playoffs. Brandon Hagel, a goal and 3 assists. And again, in the absence of Braden Point, I think there's some guys who are going to pick up their game. Because Point, from everything I've read, it sounds like Point might come back should Tampa Bay make the Stanley Cup Final, but there's really no guarantee on that. We'll likely hear a better idea for just how severe Point's injury is once the playoffs are done. Kucherov, 4 goals and 11 assists. He might be the best playoff performer among forwards over the last half-decade. And there are a lot of players you could put in there, but Kucherov has been absolutely remarkable in that series against Florida. He just willed the puck into the net, either through a fantastic pass or an awesome goal. So we'll see what he does this series. And Stamkos, 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points. He has had some very key goals throughout this playoff run for Tampa Bay, which is not a surprise. On the Rangers side, you've got Panarin, 4 goals, 7 assists. I think we're still waiting for Artemi Panarin to really find his game consistently in the playoffs. And honestly, I think that's a good thing for the Rangers. They've got halfway to a Stanley Cup without needing Panarin to score more than a point a game. Lafreniere, 2 goals, 5 assists. This experience for Alexis Lafreniere is huge. This is absolutely huge, and I think that the 7 points is good, but I think this experience of going this far in the playoffs is going to be just awesome for him. And next year, I expect his points total to come up quite a bit during the regular season. Chris Kreider, 8 goals, 3 assists. He was tamped down quite a bit in that series against Carolina, at least in Carolina. Last night, he broke through that in a big way. And so Tampa Bay, if they're going to stop the Rangers, Kreider is a huge part of getting that stop to happen. Barclay Goodrow, former Tampa Bay Lightning member, right? So this is that familiarity. And so he may very well, he only has 1 assist. But with him back, it helped their faceoffs. It helped the Rangers PK, and it definitely helped the team having him back for that last couple of games against Carolina. Do they win if he doesn't come back? Probably, but maybe not, right? And Hedl, 5 goals and an assist. He's had 3 goals in his last 2 games. can he take that hot streak and pull that with him into the Tampa Bay Lightning series? Frankie Vetrano's been excellent. 3 goals, 5 assists for him. And Mika Zibanejad, 7 goals, 12 assists, 19 points. Not on the board, and I wanted to have him on the board as Cop. But I was like, well, I have to have Vetrano. Vetrano's put up some really key moments for them. A really good PK guy, too. And Zibanejad just seems to be coming into his own. That 19 points is remarkable. Because the interesting thing to me is that Zibanejad's been good. I still don't know that he's peaked yet. So we'll see how much scoring this team's able to do against Tampa, against Vasilevsky, or whether or not they get shut down like Florida did. And we'll see whether or not Tampa's able to continue this steamroll. They've won 6 games in a row. Can the Rangers stop them in game 1, end that winning streak, and make that home ice matter? The Rangers have home ice advantage, so that could be a huge one. We saw that it was against Carolina up until game 7, so we'll see if it works out that way here. So Tampa Bay's numbers so far in the playoffs, they're 8-3. They've scored 3.27 goals per game. They're allowing 2.45. Again, 3 goals against in 4 games against Florida means that number's come down a lot. Their special teams, 22.9% on the power play. That's a good number. Penalty kill, 87.8%. That's fantastic. And it has to stay high because that Rangers power play is lethal. Shots for and against, they're shooting 31 shots per game. They're allowing 33.6. Scoring by period, they've outscored their opposition 10-5 in the first. They've actually been outscored in the second, 11-10 overall. They've outscored their opposition 15-11 in the third, and 1-0 in overtime. So the one overtime game was Game 6 against Toronto. They won that 4-3. Hits per 60 minutes, 38.31. They're not messing around out there. They're throwing a lot of hits. Blocks per 60 minutes, 16.28 blocks per game. And both of these teams block a lot of shots. So that's going to end up being quite the counter for us to follow. That might be something I track from game to game, is who blocked the most shots. I always track the hits. I always put that into every review. This might be a game where blocks are huge as well. On the New York Rangers side, 8-6. And one thing is, they've played the extra 3 games. They've also had 2 more games go to overtime, including that triple overtime against Pittsburgh to start the playoffs. The Rangers definitely have more mileage. They also don't have the 9-day rest that Tampa Bay has. They're just getting the 1 day. So what happens here is you have a team that might be a little bit rusty out of the gate. You have a team that's tired in the Rangers, but they're more in the game shape and they're more in the every other day rhythm. Game 1 could be huge in this series. The Rangers are scoring 3.43 goals per game. They're allowing 3 goals per game. But again, the goals for and goals against dropped quite a bit in that series against Carolina from where it was against Pittsburgh. They're scoring, the power play first, 32.5% for their power play. Penalty kill, 80.5%. So their power play, 10% higher, almost 10% higher than Tampa. Their power play, a little bit over 7% less than the Tampa Bay Lightning. So the overall special teams are close. And it really comes down to, for me anyways, can Tampa Bay stop that power play? Because how the Rangers beat Carolina, 5-on-5, Carolina's the better team, but special teams, the Rangers had that going away. And so for a Carolina team whose penalty kill was fantastic during the regular season, the Rangers made it look easy to score against in that second round. If they can do the same against Tampa, there's every reason to think the Rangers have a shot here. The shots for and against, they're shooting 32.4 shots per game. They're allowing 38.9. So both teams have allowed more shots than they've recorded themselves. It's more of a deficit for the Rangers than it is for Tampa. I expect Tampa to outshoot the Rangers. The Rangers win a lot of games where they get outshot. They led the league in that this year. They've got, last night, it was the 6th game they've won where they've been outshot. They're not scared of that because they've got Igor behind him. Igor is absolutely fantastic. There's no shame in that. And I think there are Ranger fans that are sensitive to this idea that, without Shesterkin, it wouldn't be the same. There is accuracy to that. There is definitely evidence throughout these playoffs and throughout the season that if Shesterkin has a rough game, the Rangers likely don't win it. But I remember Hasek with Buffalo was much the same, and they still got to a Stanley Cup final. So, how you get there. The one thing that I've heard is the idea of, the goaltender's still a player on the team, so who cares if the goaltender steals games? It's part of the team, right? So it's still a team game. So scoring per period, they have not been outscored in any period other than overtime. The Rangers have outscored their opposition 14-11 in the first, 20-19 in the second. Second periods are wild in their series. Third period, 13-10, and in the overtime, they get outscored 2-1. Hits per 60 minutes, 29.2, so it's less than the Lightning there. Blocks per 60 minutes, 15.84, so it's about it's a little less than 0.4 blocks per game difference between these two. And honestly, they're both warriors. Both of them have defensemen that are fearless, forwards that are fearless. Basically, their key guys have bought into playing the defensive side of the game, as well as making sure that they're getting enough goals to stay ahead of the competition. So this is going to be quite the series. I could see this going 7. I could see both of the conference finals going 7. I know that's likely not going to happen, but I think this one's going to be close. So while I agree that the Tampa Bay Lightning likely win the series, I don't think it's going to be an easy one. And if the Tampa Bay Lightning let up at all, if they have any problem with rust because they've had 9 days off and the Rangers jump on them in games 1 and 2, we could see an upset. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.